pleasure to be here. Thank you to the past speakers. Thank you for the invitation. This is a really interesting and important discussion. So, hello. And I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners, pay my respects, and acknowledge also that, caring for country has always been a part of this culture. So I acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara people as the First Nations custodians and owners of the lands, and this has always been a place of learning and teaching and coming together to share ideas and think about a positive future. So I'm very much on the enablement side of this discussion. That's my bias. But why is this so important? You'll all have your answers. And I just want you to look at this beautiful home that we have. And, it's at risk. We're facing this existential crisis. If you look back at our home planet, I think it gives us a really good perspective. Certainly, astronauts have looked back from space and they think, why is, planet Earth a ship that's in mutiny? We haven't got our act together. I mean, we've done great. We've come so far, but we also create a number of problems in our path. But it's really at this point where, we need to work together and think about the future, not just our own, but the younger people in the audience as well, and the future generations. So how might we enable a circular economy? And look at this picture as well. You can see there's a structure visible from space. Can anyone guess what it is? The Great Barrier Reef, yes. And that was created through collaboration between the polyps, an animal, and it's mutualism. So I think we need to think about mutualism and finding good ways to collaborate. That's the lesson, because that is also at risk, the Great Barrier Reef, and the ecosystem services it provides. So, why? Where are we now, and where do we need to get to for the impact that we need to achieve? So we're very much a linear economy, take, make, waste, around 4%. We need to look at doubling that by 2035, 10 years, increase our materials productivity rate. And of course, we can look at the outcomes and impacts that we're trying to achieve through multiple lenses. We're very much trained to think about it through an economic lens. So what is the size of the opportunity? Well, previously, globally, it's been reported, Ellen MacArthur, about 4.5 trillion in economic value to be unlocked by 2030. For Australia, what is it? I think previous speakers have clearly outlined that it depends on the scope, speed, and ambition that we have. But it's very important to reduce emissions, to reduce pollution, to reduce resource depletion and harm to humans, to animals. Human health depends on the environment. In fact, they say that biodiversity and the environment is one of the biggest issues for human health. You can't ignore it. We don't live in a vacuum. We depend on ecosystem services. We're in a 6 max extinction of life on this planet. We're losing biodiversity. Most of our animal life is what we eat. That's the numbers. But we're losing diversity, and with that, it's like we're playing Jenga. Anyone played that? And the more you take out, the risk of collapse. So that's what we're doing. Is it wise to keep doing that? How can we stop that? Advance SDGs, improve diplomacy, reduce the risk of war, increase prosperity, peace, justice, and create a future we want. Might sound optimistic, I mean it is, but we have to remain hopeful and just give it our best shot. Regardless, let's go down, try. All right, or hopefully not. So what's the lens through which we see the world? That's going to inform the nature of the solutions we propose. So from my perspective, I've had a bit of a diverse career, studied science, law, business, worked in IP and social impact and innovation and tech transfer. So I really think about it from the STEM, the R&D perspective. How can we innovate? As Clevo said, market-based solutions. How can we encourage that? How can we think about stakeholders who are impacted and the social impact? And also driving consumer behaviour, because we're not always doing the things we should. Who's been guilty of buying fast fashion? I think Barnaby Joyce actually called me out at I was a young attorney at a pub. He happened to be there, same event, and talking about different issues, and he's like, well, what's the dress you're wearing? What do you think that's made of? And he was right. So we can all be mindful. So the money we spend empowers companies, of course. So our consumer decisions are important. But anyway, back to innovation, IP. How might it be an enabler of our Australian circular economy transition? I work in the knowledge to impact area in industry engagement with the data sciences. AI is obviously very hungry in terms of energy, and we're working on solutions to hopefully make computing more green and also stop the waste of our curtailed energy, which was pointed out. Let's use that as a resource instead. So there are lots of opportunities, but IP is certainly relevant, important. I mean, it's a lot of focus on open science, but also a necessity to think about IP as inputs to enable projects, as also, when you have outputs that might be translated into useful products or services that could be better used by the market. That can take resources to get there and require investment to enable the solution to get to market and then ultimately have the impact. Now, a more detailed question with the circular economy is how might we, through innovation IP, enable activities to change material loops? Because on the left you have the linear economy, on the right the circular economy. So the three aims: narrow the loop, slow the loop, close the loop. So how can we encourage more of that with IP? I'm going to say right now, IP, it's a tool. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. So we have to try and think about the policy, the incentives, and even, as a technology transfer professional, how we do our job more mindfully and focusing on the big end goal that we have as humanity together. Now, in terms of the Productivity Commission, it did look at some juicy fruits in terms of Australia's industries, sectors that are prime targets to have a big impact in terms of looking at circular economy transition. So I'm going to call out a colleague who's speaking after me. Built environment, Tim Shaw. He'll be talking next. Enabling solutions, fantastic. R&D can do that. Mining, so huge amount of waste, but also think about the resources inherent in that, and also the importance of enabling the transition to electrification and so forth. Of course, it's needed. I was just at a mining event, and they were talking about having 1,000 times less data than a Formula One race, but also being mindful of thinking about ESG and how to be more sustainable, and perhaps can we use data for that? Can we use AI for that? Or can we collaborate to innovate and share solutions? These are not necessarily competitive. If we can, improve, the sustainability, then that's surely a good thing for things that are necessary. Food, ag, vehicles, electronics, interesting with rights to repair, and the next session, of course, will be digging deeper into that. Yes, I'm going to call out a naughty company, a fruity phone company, which frustrated me endlessly when you were like, oh gosh, this only fits with their phone, and I have to go to a certain repairer to get it repaired. Let's hope we can, the founder of that company wasn't so happy with that approach. Let's have a more circular economy focused approach through business. I think you'll win friends. I, as a consumer, transfer to another brand. That's our power as consumers as well. Textile and clothing, right, we might need to think about, in Australia, we are per capita very naughty. Fast fashion, a lot of it, but let's change that as consumers, and let's think about how to change consumer behaviour. Perhaps brands, marketing have a good role here, as well as not allowing greenwashing. So we'll talk about that in detail soon too. All right, innovation. What is it? Why do we need it? Now, I'm just going to focus on some core types of innovation. I've got probably a 2-hour presentation to condense into less than 20 minutes now. So let's think about product innovation. Products are just tools to let you do jobs. Same with services and things like that. Do you need to own the hammer, or do you just want something hammered in? Interestingly, business models. You know, do you need to buy the product, or are you just looking for the solution? Sharing economy, but also on the interweb, there's interesting, you know, I think people are very scared about you'll own nothing and be happy. But then there's also the sharing economy idea of I'm quite happy not to have to worry about a car to maintain and, you know, all of those things. I can just get an Uber. So that's interesting. But business model innovation, the logic of how you create, deliver and capture value, we can rethink that. Management innovation, things like how you manage the organisation, people, resources. And then process innovation, that could include manufacturing processes or even business processes. And all of these are ripe for innovation to have an impact in the circular economy, and also to benefit both the innovator and have economy-wide and also environmental benefits. So we can unpack some of these. Just as, for example, product innovation, that could include the product itself, the packaging. This is biologically based, so we have the mushrooms. Instead of plastic, let's have biological materials that don't cause harm to people or organisms. Fantastic. And it can still do the job of keeping the product contained. Process innovation. So I work with business process mining and data science experts. So the processes, the DNA of an organisation, is it efficient? Could it be improved so you're using resources more effectively? Also manufacturing. Could we use 3D printing in some places where it makes sense, and reuse materials as well? And that might reduce distribution costs. Product as a service, as I mentioned, sharing economy in terms of BMI. Place-based circular hubs. These business models could enable, instead of one product to one consumer, one to many. Also, management innovation. So thinking about open innovation, not all the good ideas have to come from within. Collaborate, R&D, share, risks and also the outputs from research, for example, to solve problems. Also, industrial symbiosis. Can the outputs of one organisation feed into another? How can you keep materials, the productivity going, and so have these synergies? The stale bread from a bakery becomes the ingredient to feed the chicken. I'm making it up, but my cafe, I love them, the local cafe, and they, all the food scraps, go back to the farms that I get the delicious food from. I'm going to skip this, it's too much detail, but intellectual property, what is it? And what are the key things in 2 minutes? I might have to do a follow-on. Okay, so who is familiar with IP? Anyone an attorney? Okay. All right, so a quick overview. Patents protect new inventions, artificially created affairs. It can be new product process, a whole range of different things, materials. You have to apply, and in exchange, the public is taught eventually, after 18 months, what's in the patent. Design, it's the appearance. So 2D, 3D of an article, of a product, or part of a product, so shape, configuration, pattern, ornamentation. Again, you apply to register. Copyright, automatic, can include design drawings, software, code, repair manuals, the things that you probably need to fix a product, repair it, but the owner can potentially stop you or license you. Trademark. Now, it's any sign capable of distinguishing the goods or services of one trader from another. It's like, it's a word, it's a logo, it's a smell, it's a sound, it's anything that can distinguish. Now, there's registered and common law marks that have a reputation. There's special trademarks called certification trademarks, and this, I think, can help with greenwashing because they certify that the goods or services meet a particular quality or standard. Example, Heart Foundation tick of approval. Example, made in Australia. How can we use certification trademarks to improve consumer knowledge, reduce greenwashing, and drive choice towards the good products, services, the green innovations, and not those that are greenwashing? You meet the standard, you get to use the mark. Confidential information is not intellectual property, sometimes grouped with it, but things like know-how is in your mind, goes with you. Trade secret, you might keep the method or formula, in your manufacturing, a secret, Coca-Cola recipe, things like that. But other people might, come up with something independently, or you might have a non-disclosure agreement and share it with selectively. It can also apply to data, client lists, and so on. So that might be used to either share or not share. So I think throughout the process, there's different categories of IP that could certainly help or hinder, and throughout the circular process, or making it more circular. We certainly don't want to forever encourage, residual waste and businesses that depend on it. It's more a transitional. Let's get rid of the residual waste as much as we can. But yes, things like consumer behaviour, branding and certification marks can come in here, but also the right to repair, these are critical. And I think also it's a balance between encouraging innovation, creativity, problem solving. That's a risk, that's an investment. Entrepreneurship is hard. Yasmin, the founder of world's biggest garage sales, Sir Economy, amazing person. She set it up, she did great, so much support, she was selling second-hand goods. But companies don't always succeed, even if they should. And Clevo, thank you for sharing some ideas about how we could enable more of this. But what a great entrepreneur, and she's certainly taken the experience away. But these are the balances trade-offs. So we get a disclosure from a patent, but I am running out of time. Okay, so I think it's very much as a technology transfer professional thinking about how can we maximise impact, how can we get the IP into the hands of those that are best equipped to enable it, but also there could be different approaches. Open licensing, for example, Creative Commons for repair information, or people independently coming up with, here's how you repair something and I'll share it. Because copyright is for preventing copying. But anyway, there's also a part 2 at a later date if you would like. But I've certainly wanted to point out that the Australian Patent Act recently got an amendment of the Objects Clause to really think about promoting economic well-being and also transfer dissemination of technology. And that had an impact when it went up to the federal court, then High Court in the case of Caladad Seiko. So once you sell a product, do you exhaust your patent rights? So the High Court turned over what the federal court, full court, said patent rights are exhausted. So essentially, they sell their printer cartridges, consumer buys it, pop it in the bin, a company legally acquires it, and then they import it into Australia after modifying it for reuse, and sold it. And then, so the question was that infringement? Was it implied license? And the High Court, thankfully, said it's not infringement to do that. So that's a good move in the right direction, but there are complications. It would be good to have greater clarity, the right of repair, particularly with designs and nutting out some of the issues. There are some litigious companies, and let's make that better enabled. Thank you very much.